Red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather, red
That's
leather,
what he
yellow
does,
leather,
yeah.
red leather,
When he
yellow
messes
leather,
up on
red
his
leather.
Instagram stuff, he's like, I hear him all the time. He's like, oh man, that's not what I wanted to say. Red leather, yellow leather, red leather. And I'm just like, Nick,
Nice.
what are you doing?
It's like that.
Welcome to the Archfluence Podcast, where we discuss how design impacts the way we live, work, and invest. I'm Nick Caracan, your host. And as usual, I have my two co-hosts, Paul Fatkins and Nino Samarzik. And this is episode 9. All right, guys, today we have a special guest, Nat Floyd, a.k.a. Nat, who's a local contractor here in Columbus, Ohio.
I think that's the first time I've heard you call him Nathaniel.
Yeah,
I didn't know he's
you know,
real
I
name
introduce
is
him.
Nathaniel.
I do introduce him as Nat all the time, and people
yeah,
give me a
constantly. Yeah,
people give me a weird look, and I'm like, yeah, that's his name.
Yeah.
Nathaniel.
The only time I get that name, by the way, is when it's my wife or my mother, and I'm usually in
They're
trouble.
mad at you, yeah.
Well, Nat is a local contractor. He's actually my contractor. We've done several projects together, including a couple big, complete full guts with additions and lots of surprises that cost lots of money. And
it's construction, right? I mean, no matter what, there's always a financial side that's unexpected. Sometimes.
Every project's different. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And your company's MGL. Nat, how long have I known you?
I was actually just thinking about that. December of 2022, I actually met you and Paul for the first time.
We're at a Coin?
No, at the house up near Upper Arlington, Chris, her kitchen remodel.
That's right.
You came in.
We did drawings.
Yeah, drawings, and Paul came in with the awesome machine to scan the house. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. That machine costs more than what this rental's going to cost. So.
Well, I'm glad that impressed you enough to keep hanging out with us. Yeah. After that, I was like, hey, I think actually the first project we did together was a small kitchen renovation for Sarah and Annette, their investment property that they have together, and it turned out amazing.
Appreciate that.
And it's still that property's great. I love it. And then I'm just like, hey, you want to do a whole house?
Yeah, I remember going to that house for the first time, and I was like walking through with obviously Chandler, my son, and I was like, yeah, I don't want to touch this house. I walked out of there and like, this is a lot of work, and then somehow we ended up doing the whole thing, and it came out marvelous.
Now, I've worked with a lot of contractors over the years, and they always say you can get 3 things. You can get timeline, pricing, or quality, and they're like, pick 2.
Yeah.
Those are the 3. They're like, pick 2, and you can never have all 3. I think I actually only have 2 with you, Nat.
Yeah,
Also.
we never hit timeline ever.
But if I had
That's
to choose,
construction.
I would pick quality
Yeah.
and pricing
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, Nat didn't start as a contractor. You actually have a really cool background story, which I think puts you in a different category as a lot of contractors right now. So why don't you tell everyone what you did prior and how that speaks to making you better in your craft?
Yeah, so I was a general manager for large distribution centers for over 20 years, like Home Depot and PetSmart and Weyerhaeuser Lumber. And after 20 years of doing that, I got tired of how corporate world was treating the workers. You know, we would have distribution sites of 300-400 people, and I watched these folks come in every day, work 16-hour days, and not to get to spend any time with their family. And I finally I had enough one day. And sitting at the house on the couch, driving my wife nuts. She's a school teacher, so she likes her summers to be alone. And there I am just watching TV. And she's like, why don't you do some handyman work? I was like, okay, because for years I've always renovated basements. So I've always done that type of stuff on the side. And first job was hang a ceiling fan. And next thing you know, it started getting a little bit bigger. And I had a client who actually was the marketing director for one of those, one-day bathroom type companies. And she looked at me, she's like, can you please redo our bathroom? And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to get into all that because water is scary when you first start doing a bathroom. But I knew what I was doing, so I eventually said yes to her. And it just literally took off from there. Did a little bit of advertising. And it's funny, Nick, you said about quality. You'll get more from your quality and referrals from all that. Yeah. And it just took off. So it's given me a great opportunity. I've been doing this now for 5 years. And for those folks out there listening, my son happens to work with me, and it's one of the greatest honors of my life.
Chan, oh my gosh, he's the most detailed-oriented individual I've ever met.
I like that.
It's amazing.
I love it when he's running the coin sign-in, because last meeting he was missing, and I noticed the big difference.
For those of you who don't know what we refer to
it.
coin quite often, it's a local real estate meetup that I host here in Columbus, Ohio. It's a lot of fun, and we do a lot of networking with a lot of interesting people.
And what does COIN stand for?
Central Ohio Investors Network. And actually, Nat is on the leadership team with us.
Doing that for 2 years now, too.
Yeah.
2 years.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Small world. All right. So let's get back into it. Nat, today I kind of want to touch on like why it's important specifically to have your contractor involved in the design process as early as possible, along like with your architect. When you have those parties working together, I think you're going to come with a better product. There's going to be, it's just going to work out a whole lot nicer. You're going to get more value for your dollar. I do know that some contractors, at least in the past, until we've gotten really strict here in Columbus, they try to do all the design themselves. They didn't necessarily pull permits. They didn't necessarily do everything the way they should be doing. And now that has changed. I think that relationship between the architect and the contractor is super important.
Yeah, if I can add on that, I will say that like a overall environment, especially in communication between design team and construction change. Like in last probably like 20 years. Before you have two parties yelling at each other, now they're forced to collaborate more often, because the majority of project, especially project bigger scale, you're gonna have a lot of design build opportunities and CM at risk types of contract that you have. Then you have a traditional design bid build. So that's like a crucial thing. Even though the overall construction scene, especially on a bigger level in Columbus, still didn't fully like embrace construction like contractor at risk type of the delivery method. They still don't find themselves really like they're still asking to be handheld by the designer when they actually going through that process.
Well, everyone wants to point fingers if something goes wrong, so there has to be a collaboration. Otherwise,
you're all both gonna look bad in eyes of client.
Sure. Yeah.
So
yeah, especially if you don't have the collaboration, right? If you guys aren't talking, then it's very easy for the contractor to tell his story, right? Point the finger back to you. So yeah, like Nino said, having everybody on board from the beginning is going to basically create a better product in the end, and everybody's going to walk away a lot happier, and especially if it's a challenging project where there's issues that come up during the process. And
it's also kind of a catch-22 too, because Nat, I know you can't give exact pricing on something until we have a full set of drawings and know the entire scope of work. So it's kind of a work in progress at the beginning.
I think one of the big things to remember, though, is that the end of the day, it's about the client. And what the client needs and wants, and so we all have to work together to make sure we can achieve that vision for the client. So by working with, all three of us can work together, it makes life so much easier. There's less surprises for the most part, right? And you can usually get closer to budget. And if you do this before you start the renovation, right, it's huge. We can take a look at something and say, wow, we want to take out this wall and put a beam in. Well, I can tell you roughly what that beam's going to cost. And that then will then tell the customer, hey, yes, I do want to spend this extra, whatever, X amount of dollars. So they now know that, hey, we can afford this in our budget. But if they have drawings done, they're going to get in their head, oh, this renovation is going to cost me X dollars. And then as a contractor, I'm going to come in, I'm going to say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to crush your dreams because it's double what you think it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So,
but Ned, I have this strict budget I have to stick to.
That's great.
Yeah.
Good luck.
It's like one big thing is when you say like, especially like a timeline, and this is good having this communication, but quite often you're gonna see like a client's changing their mind. Suddenly they get like they just realize maybe some new like a horizon opens up, and now they wanna maybe I should renovate this space too in addition to this. So that's
exactly why we start with a design consultation. And Nat, you bring me in for a lot of your clients just for that, and even on smaller projects, because once you start diving into something, it's going to impact an adjacent space, and then if you're getting into this, you might as well do that. So I know, yes, it's going to increase the scope of work, it's going to increase the budget. However, if you're doing these projects separately, they're going to be more expensive over time, right? And as we move forward with inflation and material costs and everything else, prices are constantly getting expensive. We just did a duplex together, Nat, and you said something to me that I'm never going to forget. You said, because I was debating on redoing the siding for the whole house, and it was, what, $15,000?
Yeah.
And Nat's like, it's cheaper to do it now than it is in 5 years. And I'm like, actually, you're absolutely right.
That is, yeah.
And I don't want to have to worry about it in 5 years, which will disrupt our tenants, our guests, all those things. So we just decided, let's just take care of everything and do it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of controlling costs too, it's like if you start out with something and then in the middle of the process you decide to add something else,
Exactly.
then all of a sudden you need to factor in new things and reconsider. And again, it's a headache on the contractor side trying to then all of a sudden pivot, and now you're taking on extra work and extra scope, and that's where your costs will basically start to run away.
He's also scheduled. He's planning.
I was literally just about to say that is that, a project, let's say it takes 6 weeks, and if all of a sudden we're changing up a major scope of work and now it's going to take 8 weeks, there's a client behind you that I'm now calling to make that call and say, hey, sorry, we're not going to make the start time for you.
Yeah, which you can't always do.
Right.
That's why I think the design consultation is key. We just go over the scope of work. We talk about basic pricing. If your contractor can be with you during that consultation, it's great, because now we bounce ideas off each other. Yeah. You make some great suggestions, and then you might say something that could trigger, something else that we could do for, less money or just in a better way, to add more value to the property.
Yeah, and having your contractor with you during the design, it helps because we're more in tune to the pricing of material right now. I literally every day am looking at the price of lumber. So I can tell you, I have a project that we're about ready to start. When I bid the project 6 months ago, all right, the cost of the lumber package for this was about $4,000. Well, I just looked at it again, and it's now up to $4,800. Yeah. So it changes pretty quickly.
It changes.
Yeah, I think that's one of the first questions that we always ask too, right? Even if there's not a contractor on board and we're talking to the client initially, first thing we ask, do you have a contractor in mind? Because again, we want to have all parties involved in the beginning conversations. And, we can give them an idea on price, but like you said, you're looking at this stuff every day. You understand the ins and outs of it. So it's like your input is critical, especially at the beginning phase.
It is very critical, especially in the early design phase. And selection of materials. You can go with option B, which is actually maybe give you better aesthetics and better price.
Sure, and
because of the market value.
That's why change orders are more expensive, because it changes the schedule, it changes the budget. We have to do more research for those pricings, those materials. Timelines might be extended for different materials. So if we can have all that worked out in the beginning, or at least a very good idea, it's going to cause a lot less headache and keep costs down.
Well, and think about it too, is you're going to have a bunch of experts, right? Because you're a contractor and design, we're the experts. We see stuff every single day. So something that may have always worked in one unit may not work in another one.
Correct.
I may have seen that sooner than you may have seen it out in the field.
Or if it works on YouTube, on TikTok, may not actually work in reality. So try to do by yourself kind of thing. So I think that's a key. That's a key in the construction.
So I want to touch on something else too. Now you do a lot of the work yourself, which I think is great. It has some negatives to it. Obviously it's harder to scale that way. You take on less projects that way. But I personally like it because you have a really good. Your head's wrapped around every project. You know all the details about it, and you're seeing and solving problems that other contractors that I've worked with in the past don't necessarily do.
I appreciate that. I really do. It's it helps too when you are going through the whole building process, because now I've built the relationships with the subcontractors, so they know what I expect for the job. I do know a lot of contractors. They're like, oh, they'll send their painters in or whatever, and they don't even check on it. And then the client happens to go in. They're like, what happened in this room? This looks horrible. Well, that's why you should have a good contractor. Same with inspections too. When the inspectors come, you want to build that relationship so the inspectors can say, hey guys, you can't do this, or you can do this, or we're going to make sure that this is taken care of before we pass you. So yeah, it's good to be on part of the project the whole entire time.
So I want to work design into this a little bit more. I know obviously earlier in the project is better, but we do have some changes in the field, and sometimes it's something that you see that we don't see, because you're actually, you're you're doing the work. Whether it's moving a doorway or whatnot. I know.
Well, we don't have X-ray vision, right? We can't see through things. So
unforeseen conditions.
Yeah, sometimes it just the unforeseen conditions, like Nino said, it just takes that demo phase to open it up and actually see what's going on.
Yeah, and I've got two great examples, and Nick, you're gonna remember both of these.
Are they both his projects?
Of course,
of course.
No, one's a positive, and one's one of the ones that you just said, Paul. It's like you opened up the walls, and you're like, oh, we didn't see that. One of them was we actually, and I don't know how, to this day, I don't know how we missed it. The two of us missed it, plus our framer missed it. It was on a second floor, and they had put an addition on at one point, and the roof line came down. And no one saw that when the roof line came down, the door literally came to the roof line for the back. There was no header.
Issue, yeah.
No header.
Oh.
But someone built it improperly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the surprise, and that's the phone call. Hey, Nick, I need another $12,000 because we're gonna blow out the roof.
Ripped off the roof. Did a different, instead of shed roof, we did gable style, which actually worked out because now I have vaulted ceilings. It
looks gorgeous.
It looks great.
And that's like a good advice for all like investors who trying to like invest in their own house or like in rental properties, to have contingencies in mind, because this is construction, and you usually, like especially in residential, you usually don't have any existing drawings, any like vestiges on everything, like what people put in this
even
building.
Commercial. I mean, only until recently is the city saving these digital, because we went digital.
Then they save it only to a point, and then it's gone.
It's gone. I'm working for one of the biggest clients here in Columbus, and they're known that having very poor existing drawings library, and they just don't maintain it. They don't have record, and many buildings are built in 50s. So things changed dramatically since then.
Yeah, I think that's why universities have like their own departments, right, that actually maintain some of those records.
So I have a
question.
But
obviously not everyone does that.
So almost I have a question for Nate, and it's like construction work. It's not easy, especially dealing with multiple people, subs. You never know what kind of subs. You heard about this guys. He's like all accolades and stuff, and his performance is not that great. You have to face him and tell him like a job is not performed correctly. What makes you moving every day and sticking in a construction world?
It's the people. I
you
absolutely love
like
the
to
people.
Deal with it,
yeah. I mean, think about it. You think about my background. It's I worked in distribution. My job was people, right?
Dealing with the people.
It's talking to people and getting them to perform their best. So I've been very fortunate in my career, even in the construction field. There's probably only one sub, maybe two, that I will not work with again. But everyone else has come around to, hey, this is what I need, right? This is what our client needs. It's about the client at the end of the day. It's not about their feelings.
It's almost like I cannot experience love if you don't give up a love. So it's like almost like a two-way street that you have to kind of use as a logic and approach in construction. I think that's a very good point because... Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, think about it. At the end of the day, you guys do these fantastic drawings, right?
Yeah.
So it's a vision and it's a dream, right? And then I get to look at these drawings and I get to talk to our clients because we do mostly all residential, right? So I get to talk to them. I get to see what their vision was. I saw this on Pinterest or whatever. So then when I put that all together, and as a team we put that all together, and then see the look on their face, it's priceless. It's that's what keeps me going, to see how happy people are. And then when you get the professional photos, and you're like, wow, I was part of that.
Nat watches the HGTV shows and fast forwards it to the end for the reveal. Yeah. That really gets to him.
Yeah.
So you working with any other designers except ArcFluence? So ArcFluence is the soul. So it's like you stick with the team, with the winning team. Yeah, why changing the winning team?
Yeah. If you have a formula that's working, why change it up?
Nat, you've actually taught me a lot of things and mostly patience with subs. I have a really high standard when it comes to how we do things, and I want to be the best, right? So I think that having you kind of temper that and keep everything moving forward and keeping those relationships strong has really been beneficial for us doing many projects together.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely.
In fact, we're looking for a project right now to flip together.
Absolutely. It'll be a fun one too.
So you're gonna be investor in that project too?
Yeah, absolutely. So,
nice.
Thanks to Nick, Nick got me into coin, and we have a rental property out in Pennsylvania by default. It was our old house when we moved. It was back in the downturn in 2008 and 2009, so we kept it. But then we also bought one here 2 years ago, and it was because of Nick. We went to coin. We had a bunch of speakers, and just getting into the real estate investing was unbelievable. So you meet so many folks, and as a contractor, when you go to one of these investing groups and you say that you're a general contractor, I feel like I am Taylor Swift.
He's a superstar.
Yeah,
nice.
because everyone wants a general contractor.
Everybody's looking for the best contractor.
Oh yeah.
Something I wanted to touch on real quick when we talked about when we're tearing down walls and we find surprises. There's also a point where sometimes we can look at a plan and say, we all agree this is fantastic, this is going to work out, this layout is there, and then we actually go to build it and it just doesn't flow. And Nick, I'm going to think about, we were adding in a laundry room to a second story, or the first, was it first? First floor.
I do a lot of laundry rooms.
Yeah, no, it was the duplex we were working on. We put a laundry on the first floor, and when we got it framed out, we realized that it just took up too much room in the living room.
I see.
So we took it down.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a lot of work in there, but we took it down because it just did not make any sense.
Yeah.
Even though on the paper it looked great, this was going to be beautiful.
But in reality, it was a different story.
Yeah, I will sometimes walk on a project and be like, nope. Sometimes it's hard to gauge these things. We try to, when we're adding a half bath or a laundry room, taking it out of the basement, putting it on the main floor or the second floor, like we try to do all those things because it adds value to the property. Yeah. It adds convenience and it adds value no matter what you're going to be using it for or selling. But sometimes we really try to force it, and when we realize this, we have to alter course.
I think 9 out of 10 times everything works out.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah,
because,
of course.
Because
I would
we're
say
engaging,
99 out of 100.
Yeah, because we're engaging everybody. Okay, 9 point. Anyway, we're engaging everybody at the beginning, right? We're all having the conversations. We have drawings that we look at together. We have design reviews and in the middle of the process, right? As well as at the end. So I mean, there's multiple touches all through the entire design process before anybody swings a hammer.
Yep.
And like you said, sometimes you get there and it doesn't work out, but the majority of the time it's working out because we have that process in place.
And sometimes we have that hard conversation with the clients where we're like, hey, look, having this, whatever, amenity in your space here is going to add tremendous value. Are we renting this? Are we selling this? We're going to have a conversation about the strategy. We already had a conversation about their strategy at this point, but we're like, we're going to be tight here. But at the same time, we probably need to do this to get the value you're expecting to get out of the property.
So you already mentioned that your next step is going to be investment, not only construction, but now investing. Are you also planning to expand your construction business, to just grow operation and maybe get more into the commercial world if you're not already in commercial world that
is a fantastic $1 million question there. There's part, I think we all want to be successful. That's why we go into this business. It's not because we don't want to do it. Sometimes it is also about the quality, and everybody is different. And this is a fault of my own, but I have a hard time letting go of quality. And I want to make sure that if it has MGL on it, that it stands for quality. It's just like, with your guys in Arcfluence, you guys want quality. You want to be known as quality. So I do have a trust issue. All right. I'll be self-admitting about that. Yes, I would love to, because I know the product that we put out is great. I know that clients are happy. As I said, I haven't had to advertise in years because it's nonstop. So do I want to expand? Absolutely. I've just got to get over that point of being able to trust somebody to do
life
what
is
I
a balance. So
Yeah.
it's put little bit things in a risk and maybe achieve greatness. You never know. Yeah.
Nat, maybe we should partner up. I can drive that a little bit. I can help push.
I think yeah, it's a two-way street. Why not?
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, something that tells you that you pretty much communicating all your work through the Arcfluence. I think our flanks should communicate way more through you, because there is like a two-way satisfaction and the most important quality, because competition is everywhere. The quality is what client like appreciate in the end. Even though he pays a little bit extra, even though he lingers a little bit longer, he always gonna look at that. That's gonna stay there for 20, 30, maybe 50, maybe 100 years. You never know. Construction probably is gonna stuff that we're working on. That's what I like. Architecture. We're probably gonna it's gonna last longer than we're gonna last.
Of course, and you also have to look at the market too. Like Columbus is growing faster than any other city. I mean, we just had our last coin meeting.
That was such a good talk. Yeah.
Intel just raised their budget to $28 billion invested here.
Oh, I mean, they talked about the whole region, like the 11 counties surrounding and like Honda making additional investment and growth in EV infrastructure and spending on manufacturing. Yeah.
My point is, besides Columbus being awesome, is people are investing in their homes because the value's there now. Real estate's going up, so they have that berth to add value to their home, so they're able to spend that money now, and it makes sense. So contractors are now superstars. That is the thing to be right now. Honestly, great architects too. There's a need for this in our industry, and there are folks who aren't licensed and doing a lot of work here right now, which is a problem. That's why I think it's important to ask your contractor if they're licensed, if they're bonded, if they're insured. Ask for some references. Go see them too. Go look at some of the stuff they've done.
Exactly.
Not all contractors are good at social. Nat, I like watching you. You're fun. But a lot of contractors don't show their work like they really could.
They should, yeah.
Yeah, I think when we have the most problems on a project, it's when there's a breakdown in communication between the client, the architect, and the contractor.
Usually, yes.
And that's why communicating and staying on the same page and liking who you're working with is important. I would strongly encourage everyone to interview their contractor, not just for their skill set, but are you able to work together? Your designer, your architect, are you able to work together?
Go ahead.
I just want to go back to one thing. When we talked about Columbus expanding in the awesome talk that we all participated in recently, there's going to be a lot more contractors that are coming in from out of state. So just be wary of that.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to think about, and the municipalities around here, every city is different. The requirements for Columbus is different than Upper Arlington, and some things are minor. But if you hire a local contractor, they're going to have a better thumb on that.
Oh, yeah.
They're also going to have probably better deals that they know that they've built relationships and then get turnaround. I know, for example, right now, if I need a big lumber package delivered, my guy is going to get it to me the day that I need it versus if he doesn't have a relationship with the contractor. And so just be mindful of that.
And they may even charge a little bit extra for these guys that are coming out of the state. So I think that's what these big players learn. And because I'm working now on a project with a team from Chicago, and I just see how we, as a local guy, were given more and more responsibility how the project goes on, because they just cannot handle it. We are there like a boots on the ground, and they just see it Nino, can you just take care of this? You guys doing an amazing job. Can you guys, because of our communication with the city, with our communication with the client, with our ability to respond very quickly, with our ability to visit the site right away. Even though because of all this technology and networking, you still the meeting in a person and having your eyes on a site is priceless. So, and especially as you mentioned, having connections because you're going to see in construction today, doors, lead time, long lead time, windows, long lead time, this long lead time. So things that you keep hearing, it's a long lead time. But your local guy, as Nathaniel mentioned here, is and his connections, his buddy connections are crucial.
So Nat, I'm going to ask you right now, what is your biggest pain point? What are some challenges you're seeing in the industry when you're working with a client, working on a project right now? What's going on?
This is such a basic answer. Money, funding, right? There's times when we'll be in the middle of a project, and depending on how big it is, if there's a draw schedule, especially with investors. No offense, right? Like we've all been through it as an investor, where you're waiting for that next check or that next draw to come out. So now you're trying to wait to get things ordered and moved around, because not all contractors are going to front that money up front.
No contractors should front that money up front.
And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that think that they should, but at the end of the day, they really shouldn't be. So I would say that's probably that. And then just sometimes folks get decision fatigue, all right? And Pinterest and Instagram and all the social media out there, they all show whatever the closest trend is, and people aren't sure if they want that or not. All right. So
I know.
Would that be a good time to bring in your designer, your architect?
Exactly.
Okay.
So can you tell me a little bit more about, we talk about designers, talk about you. Can you tell me a little bit more about like clients, like the owners of the properties? Like, have you ever met like a bad client?
Yeah, no, clients, no, I have not. I've had clients where I've gone in and I've had a quote interview with them. You're talking
potential clients,
yeah. Where you walk in and, my history as a general manager, I'm interviewing people all the time. So when I walk in, I want to get to know that client and to see if we have the right vibe. It's like that in anything that you do in life. And, I'm going to take Nick as an example. When we first met, we just hit it off. We were able to just chat freely, and you start to learn more and more about that person and gets a better idea of where their vision is at and what they want to expect. So no, I don't take on clients that I think will
that
not be
easily.
A good fit. Yeah, you walk in, you'll have people say, "Hey, I want this addition on the back of my house for $5,000 or $6,000." I'm like, sorry,
oh yeah, that's automatic now.
We're not
yeah,
the team for you.
So Nat, my Star Trek uniforms don't scare you away?
No, not at all, because being a Star Wars guy, I always like to tease you a little bit about that, but no, not at all. It's what makes it fun. I mean, I think one of my birthday gifts to you
do you do cosplay?
I haven't yet. I want to. I don't.
You
know
only live once, Nat.
I know. I think
I never
I'm
did cosplay. Yeah.
The cost of Darth Vader's.
Yeah. Back to the conversation. So financially, right? You mentioned somebody comes up with the idea, I want to pay X for the price or for the project, right? So that's the price they have in mind. Is there? So I know, like I'm always somebody that says you need to plan contingency, right? You need to plan for those unforeseen things that are going to happen. It's not reality just to say it's X and that's it. That's the price through the whole thing. So
material can cost more than you expected.
Yes.
That's another thing.
So in general, what would you say, like on your projects, do you see as that kind of buffer window? Is there a certain percentage? Is it like 10%?
Yeah, so depending on the project, if it's a large scale project, let's say we're gutting the entire house, I'm going to tell you it's 20%, because once you take out walls and you're taking down drywall, you don't know what you're going to find behind there. Could be an addition that wasn't put on properly, and now you got to bring it up to code. For smaller projects, we're doing a bathroom right now, and it's usually 10 to 15%. The bathroom that we just did, the poor lady's main line was clogged up. It actually collapsed. So we had to jackhammer the basement, and it was almost $3,000. And that was about 15% of what her total base or bathroom remodel was. So anywhere from 15 to 20%, because at the end of the day, if you plan for it and you don't use it, you're going to be happier, versus if I say, hey, yeah, it's $100,000, and by the way, we need another 20. Well, I don't have that 20,000. Then your project's not getting finished, or you're going to have to come up some creative way to get the extra money.
So what do you usually see as a potential for unforeseen condition? If you may be touching the basement, if you may be touching the roof, touching the basement or the roof, is that like a usually when it starts like a red flagging, or doesn't matter? You just like you walk the site, and if there is something that...
I mean, everything is existing. It's the same when we approach a project too, right? If it's a piece of dirt that we're developing, great, then we know everything. But I mean, it's impossible.
Yeah.
It's not possible at all to just know everything going in if you have an existing structure, because through time, things happen.
So my concern is, or my comment here would be, how do we prepare our clients for that? What does the conversation look like, and how do you give that expectation?
Yeah. So one things I do want to say is that I have noticed that every time we go into an existing structure that has had an addition put on, there has been a problem.
I see. That was like a later on added. God knows there's no any drawings about it, and it's built completely God knows how.
I would say that's a great tip.
Well, I mean, if you live in smaller towns, and Columbus used to be a smaller town, we didn't have all these strict rules and code. A lot of people did things on their own or hired people to do something for less because they want to maximize the value.
Or they build it by themselves.
Yes, my buddy can do it for $5,000.
Yeah, exactly.
I did my first house in Queens, New York. I actually demoed my basement concrete floor, lowered the floor so we would have true 8-foot ceilings. I mean, I probably shouldn't even say some of this stuff, but like I found some crazy stuff that it was completely over my head. But you learn.
It's almost like an Indiana Jones approach. What are you gonna find down in your basement?
You just made it sound much better. You just made it sound much better than what it actually is. People DIY. Listen, how are we gonna do this kitchen renovation? Danny's doing his kitchen right now. He's getting help from his dad. I mean, you make it work because it does maximize the value that you're getting out of a project.
But this is a good point. Whenever I see like an addition that doesn't really match us, that's kind of red flag right there.
Well, and today in the age of the internet, everyone can become an expert by watching one 3-minute YouTube video.
That's what I mentioned earlier on. Yeah.
The problem is that codes change. You guys know this better than I do.
Oh yeah.
Codes change literally all the time. So what might have been acceptable 10 years ago, or heck, even 5 years ago, and I'll give you a prime example. 5 years ago, a sump pump could go into a regular outlet. Now it must be a GFCI outlet.
Outlet. Yep.
It's got to be dedicated. So that type of stuff happens all the time. So if you pull up that YouTube video that was 15 years old and the guy looks really cool and he sounds really good, it doesn't mean what he was doing then.
And he recorded the video on a property somewhere in Montana. So good luck.
Hey, don't make fun of Montana. It is a beautiful state.
Oh, it is, but
and a lot of people are growing there.
But it's different from Columbus, Ohio.
But different code. Yeah. That's what I'm aiming to.
Yeah.
That's
different jurisdiction, different code.
That's why we coming back to that, like knowing the local contractor, knowing the local designer, knowing the local code. So it's very key.
I think with the technology boom that we're seeing, I think a lot of municipalities, they're going digital. They're adopting other municipalities' standards, and we're seeing the bar raise everywhere.
It is. I mean, on the end of the day, local code is based on IBC, which is International Building Code. And every code, or majority municipalities and states, it's actually based on this code. And only there are some portion that are being changed based on existing conditions or a trends or a market in that state. So it's
and some contractors don't even need to be licensed. Like you can hire.
For example, there are some exceptions just in Ohio code in order to boost like development. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like in some residential code, there is like some things being omitted just because, or for example, in IBC, if you have open garage, you still need the sprinklers. In Ohio, you don't. So that's like a one thing. So it's just like it gives a little bit more flexibility because there is a demand for a housing. There is demand for a parking space. So that why local jurisdiction adjusting these requirements.
Nick, I want to touch on something you just barely mentioned there about a license, and especially in the state of Ohio. And this is going to be anywhere in any state. So in the state of Ohio, the state does not have a general contractor license. Right? So you'll hear a lot of people that will put an ad out, hey, I need a licensed contractor for, we'll just call out the city of whatever, Westerville. Right? Well, Westerville does not have a licensing program. They have a registration that you must register to work in their city, but you don't have to take any test. All right. In Columbus, you must take a test to be a licensed contractor. So just be careful of that. If you're going to start your project. Check with your local municipality to see that does the contractor have to have an actual license? Are they supposed to be bonded, insured, and all that? You're going to want that anyways. But when it comes to licensing, it varies by municipality.
Yep. For example, when I lived in New York City, I was a licensed contractor in New York City.
Did you take any tests?
I did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It wasn't that hard.
I know, but still I kind of like it having like at least one more.
I feel like also with my background in architecture, it made it easy for me.
Yeah, but it's only reason I kind of like it, that being a little bit more licensed and a little bit more controlled, only because of people seeing on the YouTubes they can do it by themselves or even start a construction company. And I'm seeing I was witnessing some contractors signing for very complicated jobs, never did before. It was a major hassle.
It's a piece of the puzzle, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes you don't have that experience, and you just have to get there, right?
Yeah,
but
exactly.
At the same time, when I'm hiring a contractor, I think rule number one, I need to be able to have a dialogue with them and get along with them. And then we talk about licensing. We talk about, are you insured? Are you bonded? Where have you? What work have you done? Can I see it? And not just pictures of it. Can I go there and see it?
Yeah, I think that circles back to the beginning where you said it's critical to go and see the work that's been done.
Yes.
By the contractor, by the architect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I started as a handyman too. I mean, I didn't just start doing luxury apartments. I started doing I changed light bulbs. A lot of those apartments had 14-foot ceilings, and some of the building managers didn't have, they don't do this type of work for their tenants sometimes. So they would hire me to come and change a light bulb. I'd bring my ladder in. I have a $2 million insurance policy, and I'd pull bulb out, put a new bulb in. $150. Best money ever.
No,
for a light
I
bulb.
think that's all these, all these regulations are important because tomorrow, if Nat wants to expand his business, he won't be able to maybe have that luxury to personally interview all these people, So then he has to have some kind of source, some kind of line of trust that if some person is licensed, went through the, certain control program or whatever, that he has a less concern to hire that guy. You know what I'm saying? Or at least have a first filter. Then you're going to come to me, then we're going to talk, and this is my second filter, and it's you check all my boxes.
And I think when you're in larger municipalities, you're going to have that. You're also going to spend, it's going to cost you, right?
Yeah.
When you submit for permits in Columbus, they just raise their prices again. Permit inspections, everything just keeps going up little by little. But while some people say it's a money grab for the city, which honestly does help employ those professionals, it's also giving some reassurance about the quality that you're getting for your projects.
That's a
which
key.
is super important, especially when we're doing a full gut renovation. If we're remodeling a bathroom, all right, we have a little bit more flexibility. I'm less concerned. If you're tearing apart a house, you really need to do it right?
You need to do it right.
You're going to find out a lot of the full guts that we do, Nat, they've done bathroom renovations in the past. They've done kitchen renovations in the past. And we're like, oh, they did this wrong. We're going to fix it. Yeah. So then we just do it all right at that point. Smaller projects, again, people DIY it and they don't always do it correctly. But those typically aren't as significant or problematic to the structure itself that a full gut renovation, a larger project would be, which is why when you do a larger scope, you need to have the right team in place.
Yeah, and two, if you ever get a contractor that says, "Oh, we don't need to pull permits," you need to stop and run away.
Yeah,
I mean, the permits are there. Yes,
who's just over promising stuff? Yeah,
they can be a hassle. I mean, it's a day out of someone's schedule, right? And that inspector may find something that you got to go back and fix. But why hide it? If you're doing good work, you're going to invite people to come in and say, "Please take a look," because I've been doing this for a long time. I still make mistakes.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hide from that, right? There's times we make a mistake.
Also, if you're doing some type of tax abatement, which at least it was common in Columbus, now they're starting to cut back on that because of the tremendous growth we're seeing. You need to document, you need to pull permits and have that documentation in order to apply for those tax abatements. So there's certain things that
benefits that you can
really
get.
Is a benefit to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if your contractor's familiar with that process, all the better. It'll take that burden off of you, the homeowner, and help facilitate that process. All right, so I guess let's wrap this up with what's some final advice you'd give to a client, a homeowner, about construction, design, building their team, working with their team. What would be some first steps, and what would be some just good tips that you can leave them with?
Couple things. One, have a thick shell and patience, all right, because your project is probably going to take longer than you expect.
That's what you taught me.
Nick and patience doesn't usually correlate that well.
That's an ongoing process.
Yeah.
I need to talk to somebody about that.
What's the guy from the Will Smith movie, the cop movie, where it's like woosah.
Yeah, Bad
Woosah?
Boys.
Bad Boys. Yeah,
Yeah.
woosah. That's Nick.
Martin Lawrence. Woosah.
Yeah,
Trying to
but-
calm down.
yeah.
To calm down.
No, so having patience, it's going to take longer. Plan well in advance. If you know that you want something big by, February, you better start planning the prior February. All right, just get some time because drawings take longer than you expect. Sometime
Not our drawings. We
never.
we knock them out right away. No, we actually really
we're
do.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty
It's
good.
plan approval through the city though has been extended with new codes and other things.
And it's just more clients.
Yeah.
They're dealing with more people than they usually deal before.
And Nat, that's a good point. We try to have that conversation up front.
And the city can get overwhelmed with stuff too, where it's like, again, like even the contractor can get overwhelmed with the schedule. The architect might have other clients that are lined up. So like you said, the earlier you have the conversation, the better, so you can get things moving and hit the deadline that you want to hit.
Yeah, and then on the client side too is if you see something that you like, let's say for example tile, all right? I know that might seem minor. If you like it, buy it.
Yeah.
I've run across too many times where somebody has picked out something and it's 4 months later that they go to order it and it is gone.
It's
out
gone.
of stock.
And it's discontinued, or God knows. Yeah.
Or they go with something that's 89 cents cheaper, which maybe is a few $100s after your square footage is calculated for something that they just don't appreciate as much. I guess it depends on the use. If you're going to be renting it out, so be it. But if you're going to be living there, get something that really truly inspires you.
Exactly. It's your house. I mean, unless you're going to sell it the next day, it is your house. Live in it and enjoy it. But back to the original question, the patience, the timelines, and funding. Make sure you are truly prepared for it and that the money is accessible. Because if your contractor has to wait for a check to order whatever needs to be ordered, it's going to delay your project.
And yeah, that also includes some contingencies for unforeseen items.
Well said. Well, Nat, thank you for joining us today.
We got it at the end.
Hey, it
Nino's
took
gonna
me
come around. We're gonna
took me 45 minutes to figure out. My brain is still sleeping.
Luckily, your design is ingrained in you.
Oh yeah, that's good things. I usually can pull it out.
I just want to say thank you for having me on. It's been fantastic. I've really enjoyed this.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming. We're gonna put your information, your business information, in our show notes, Danny, so that our guests will be able to, our listeners will be able to see that if they want to reach out to you with anything. If you guys have any questions about your construction process, we should have some type of format where we can have that conversation too. So feel free to leave comments and we'll get back to you on that.
And if you have any questions, don't hesitate.
You guys can email me directly at nick@arcfluence.com.
Yeah. You can also set up a design consultation through our website. And then similarly, we can connect you to, whoever we need to connect you with.
And if you're here in Columbus, we can bring Nat along.
Absolutely.
Yep. Nathaniel.
Well, guys, thanks for listening. Again, Nat, thank you for joining us. And we are releasing our podcast every 2 weeks. So if you like what you hear, hit that like button, tune in, and we'll see you on the next one.
This has been the ArcFluence Podcast. As always, you can get more information and additional content on arcfluence.com. Please subscribe on the platform of your choice and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you.